High blood pressure. It sounds like something that should come with fireworks and a warning label. But most of the time, it just shows up like a nosy neighbor, uninvited, unnoticed, and always overstaying its welcome. Some people walk around with numbers higher than a 4th of July thermometer, and they feel fine. Others hit 135 and collapse like a souffle in a thunderstorm. You'd think the numbers meant everything, but they don't. Because the trouble with high blood pressure is, it's not how loud it knocks, it's how quietly it moves in. Now, the real problem isn't the pressure itself. It's what it does to the parts of you that don't send out alerts. Your brain, your nerves, your heart. All the hard-working organs that would rather suffer in silence than cause a fuss. Just like your Uncle Earl during family dinners. That's why you don't need to panic every time your blood pressure hits a high note. But you do need to listen if your body starts humming a strange tune, especially 5 notes that often play before the storm. First, morning headaches. You might call it foggy thinking. A little weight in the back of your head, like someone stuffed a sock full of rocks and hung it off your neck. Most people blame their pillow, or the cat, or the economy. But the truth is, your blood pressure is highest in the morning. And if your brain's plumbing is stiff or narrow, that pressure builds like steam in a tea kettle until your head becomes the whistle. Second, dizziness when standing. You go from lying to upright, and suddenly the room decides to do a square dance. It's not vertigo, it's not ghosts. It's your blood vessels acting like overworked waiters. Too slow to deliver the goods. Your brain needs blood fast, but the delivery service is stuck in traffic. That's not just age. That's poor circulation, calling collect. Third, tingling hands or feet. Feels like ants, or static, or that feeling when your leg falls asleep watching baseball. But if it happens often, especially at night, that's not your joints complaining. That's tiny blood vessels losing their zip. Your nerves aren't getting fed, and when nerves go hungry, they don't whisper. They buzz. Fourth, a pounding heart when you're doing nothing at all. You're sitting, thinking about nothing in particular, maybe even drifting toward a nap. And suddenly, your chest plays the drums like it's auditioning for a jazz band. Could be stress, could be coffee. But if it keeps happening, it's your heart saying it's tired of carrying the load. It's been lifting weights for years, and it wants a break. Fifth, the post-lunch slump that feels more like a collapse. You eat, you lean back, and then you melt. Your mind turns to mashed potatoes. Your limbs feel like leftovers. That's not laziness. It's your blood heading south for digestion, and not enough left going north for thinking. If your circulation was a traffic system, this would be a major pileup. These 5 signs, they don't always scream, but they nudge. They poke. They tap on the shoulder like a polite warning from Mother Nature herself. And if you're smart, you won't wait for her to raise her voice. Now here's the twist. Not having these signs doesn't mean your body is in the clear. Sometimes the most dangerous thing is feeling fine, while your insides are planning a mutiny. That's why you need a better gauge than just numbers and luck. In the end, health isn't just about pressure, it's about recovery. Can your body bounce back after cleaning the garage, arguing with your cousin, or eating 1 too many pancakes? That's the golden sign. That's what I call the silent comeback test, and I'll show you how to check that later. No machine sounds, no needles, just a little awareness, and a willingness to listen before it's too late. So don't ignore your body's small complaints, because small complaints have a way of becoming big regrets. The trouble with nerves is, they don't come with a warning light. If they did, Most folks over 60 would be walking around like Christmas trees. Let's talk about symptom number 3, tingling hands and feet. A familiar annoyance, often blamed on sleeping wrong, sitting too long, or some invisible cat stepping on your nerves at night. But when it keeps coming back, especially when you're not even doing anything, that's your body saying, "Hey, the wiring's wearing thin." You see, your nerves are like old telephone wires. If blood doesn't reach them properly, they start to misfire. Buzzing, burning, tingling, or going completely silent. That's when holding a spoon feels like wrestling a fish. Or walking feels like someone swapped your shoes for jelly. And it's not just uncomfortable. It's a sign that your tiny blood vessels, the ones out at the far edge of the map, are getting clogged or stiff. When those capillaries can't do their job. Your nerves starve. They send weird signals, or none at all. I once met a woman who thought her hand was just getting sleepy every night. Turns out, the arteries in her arm were narrowing. Her nerves were whispering SOS. She just didn't speak nerve. So if your limbs still feel alive, if your fingers dance across the page and your toes tap to music, that's something to celebrate. But if things feel numb, or sparkly in the wrong way, don't ignore it. Because once nerves go silent, they're not big on coming back. Symptom number 4, a racing heart at rest. Your body is built to rest when you rest. It's not supposed to throw a party in your chest while you're sitting on the porch. But when your heart thumps like a marching band for no reason, it's not enthusiasm, it's exhaustion. Think of your heart like a good old steam engine. It can chug along all day, but if you keep piling pressure on it, without a break, sooner or later, the wheels start to wobble. That pounding in your chest, that flutter that comes out of nowhere, that's the engine misfiring, the valves getting jumpy, the conductor starting to sweat. It could be arrhythmia. It could be the early signs of heart failure. Or it could just be your ticker saying, "I need a lighter load." I've had patients tell me. "It's nothing, doc, just a little excitement." But excitement doesn't show up every Tuesday at 3 p.m. without a reason. Neither does a heart that races while you're folding socks. Now, if your heart's steady, calm, marching to its own quiet rhythm, even when you climb stairs, that's a sign of a strong engine. But if your chest feels like it's holding a live squirrel every afternoon, it's time to get it checked. Symptom 5, the great post-meal meltdown. I'm not talking about a nap. I'm talking about your brain shutting down like a small-town diner after lunch. You eat, and then, boom, lights out. Fog rolls in, and everything moves in slow motion. Most people say, "Oh, it's just digestion." Or, "I shouldn't have had that second helping." But what's really happening is, your blood is heading south to help with the feast, and there's not enough left going north to keep the lights on upstairs. This is fine if your blood vessels are spry, if they adjust quickly. But in folks with high blood pressure, or vessels stiff as an old garden hose, that adjustment is slow, and your brain gets the short straw. I had a patient who couldn't stay awake after lunch, not tired, not sleepy, knocked out, every day. We checked her blood flow. Turns out, her post-meal brain was running on fumes. If after eating, you still feel alert, can wash the dishes, chat with your neighbor, or read a book without melting into the sofa, that's a good sign. But if every meal feels like anesthesia, don't laugh it off. That's your brain waving a white flag. Now, you might be thinking, "I don't have any of these signs." Fantastic. But don't get too comfortable, because danger doesn't always knock. Sometimes it slips through the window with a smile. That's why the most important thing isn't the symptoms. It's how fast you bounce back after they visit. We'll talk about that in the next part. A test you can do at home. No charts, no pills, just you, and a little honesty. Now we come to the part of the story where most folks lean in closer. Not because they're afraid, but because they've seen enough to know that the loudest danger isn't always the worst. It's the one that smiles quietly and says, "I'm fine," while sneaking out the back door with your health. Let's talk about what I call the comeback signal. The one thing that tells me more than any blood pressure reading, more than any heart monitor, more than any fancy test that makes you sit still while a stranger pokes at your elbow with cold fingers. It's simple. After something mildly exhausting, like sweeping the porch, folding laundry, arguing with a relative about politics, do you bounce back? Or do you need to lie down like a poet recovering from heartbreak? Because health isn't measured by how high you can climb, but by how quickly you stop panting at the top. The healthiest people I know aren't the ones who never get tired. They're the ones who recover like a rubber band. Stretch, snap back, ready again. No drama, no collapse. Take a man who walks a block, sits for 5 minutes, then feels like himself again. That's a man whose body still remembers how to reboot. Now take another, who sweeps the kitchen, then lies on the sofa for an hour, staring at the ceiling like it's a crime scene. That's a sign, and not a good one. I always ask my patients, what happens after you get angry? Do you stew for hours, lose sleep, wake up more tired than you went to bed? Or do you shrug, eat dinner, and forget it by morning? That's your comeback signal talking. Your body's ability to handle stress and then quietly rebuild its balance. It's called homeostasis. A big word for something so basic, even a tomato plant does it better than some humans. This test, you don't need a stethoscope, just a moment of honesty. Next time you feel tired, ask yourself, how long does it take me to feel like me again? The faster the return, the more gold you've got left in your health bank. The longer it takes, the more careful you need to be with every withdrawal. Now, let's tie all the strings together. We talked about 5 warning signs that aren't really signs, but whispers, signals from your body that something isn't holding up like it used to. First, morning headaches, like your brain trying to tell you the pressure's too much. Second, dizziness when standing, as if your blood forgot how gravity works. Third, tingling limbs, a signal your nerves are running low on groceries. Fourth, heart pounding at rest, the kind of rhythm that says this engine's been hauling too much for too long. Fifth, sleepiness after meals, not the pleasant kind, but the kind where your brain turns into mashed potatoes. And finally, the comeback test. Can your body recover? Does it find its way back to balance? Or does it wander like a lost tourist in a thunderstorm? Here's the twist. You might not have any of the 5 symptoms, but if your recovery is slow, that tells me more than all them combined. Because health isn't about feeling perfect. It's about bouncing back from imperfect. If you find yourself recovering quickly, celebrate. Leave a note in the comments saying, "I've still got my gold zone." And if you feel like your engine takes forever to start after a bump in the road, don't panic. Just write, "I want more help." Because the beauty of health is, it can come back, if you know how to invite it in again. Slowly, gently, and with a good sense of humor. In the next video, I'll show you 2 little-known signs your blood vessels are stiffening without you knowing. Not pain, not pressure, but something even sneakier. And if you don't have those signs, that's another reason to smile. So subscribe to Wellness Daily 365. Hit the bell. Share with someone who thinks stubbornness is a health plan. And remind them, sometimes the body whispers before it shouts, and it's best to listen before it starts yelling.